What is the best advice you ever received about divorce process?
Best that I've ever received or that I've ever given?
You received.
That I've received, I would say be prepared. That's, I would say, the best. Be prepared. And here's the thing about it, okay? Plan for the worst, okay? And hope for the best. Right? That's my advice. Okay. That's the advice that I've received, and that's the advice that I give. Okay. You always want to plan for the worst because you never know what's going to happen in a divorce. It's like a chess game. You move one piece, somebody else is moving another.
Welcome to Single Parent Success Stories, a podcast designed to inspire single parents. Here you'll find resources from self-care to finances to parenting and everything in between. Discover what it takes to thrive. Let the stories inspire you to what is possible.
Hello and welcome to Single Parent Success Stories. Today we have a special guest, Lisa Zeiderman. She is a managing partner at Miller Zeiderman LLP, based in New York, a matrimonial attorney, CFL, and certified divorce financial analyst. She regularly handles complex financial and custody divorce matters, as well as pre- and post-nuptial agreements for high net worth individuals, named to the Crain's New York list of notable women attorneys for 2022, as well as Crain's New York Notable Diverse Lawyers for 2022, a Hudson Valley Best Lawyer in 2023, and 2021 Best Family Law Attorney for Client Satisfaction by the American Institute of Family Law Attorneys, amongst many other awards. Lisa is also a founding member of the American Academy of Certified Financial Litigators and a member of the panel for attorneys for children. It gives me a great pleasure to have Lisa with us today. First time I have not had a lawyer before, so it is a pleasure to have you. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Interesting that you haven't had an attorney before, Avina.
Yeah. So please share with us who you are, your story. Were you a single parent previously as well?
So I'll start with who I am. Obviously, I am a matrimonial attorney, as you just said. I have a practice in Manhattan and Westchester, as well as most of what is called the 9th Judicial District, which is Westchester, Putnam, Dutchess, and Rockland counties. And we are a firm of approximately 50 people. I had started my firm in 2013 with 4 people, and we grew it. And we are very proud to say we have about 23 matrimonial attorneys, and then we also opened a trust and estates department as well. So we are continuing to grow. We are, as you said, focused on complex litigation, I would say would be really how to describe us, whether it be custody or financial matters. And when I say complex, they're usually cases that have heavy negotiations or actually end up with heavy litigation issues. So we take a case either through settlement or we take it to trial, whichever one is necessary. Hopefully we can settle it at the negotiating table, but that isn't always possible. I am actually remarried. I've been remarried for approximately 26 years. I have a daughter who is 32. And she had been, 2 years old or so when I got my divorce. So this is my second marriage. And so I've gone through my own divorce, and I'm well aware of the complexities of that and how difficult that can be and stressful for our clients, since I've done it myself.
Thank you. Thank you. I know it's been a long time since, but kind of what prompted you to start the litigation firm? Was it your personal journey and the fact that you went through your own transformation and you became a single parent?
So it wasn't about being a single parent, really. It was really about being a client. And so I would say that when I first actually became a client, I hadn't even gone to college at the time. And I had gone through my first marriage and I was getting a divorce. And then I decided to go back and get my degree, my college degree, which I did at Fordham, and then to get my law degree at Fordham as well. And when I was going through all of that, I decided I wanted to be a matrimonial attorney. People said, "Really? You want to do that?" I said, "Yes, I actually do." I found the part about it interesting in terms of the financial aspects, in terms of valuations of businesses and law practices and medical practices, et cetera, and how that was done. And I also found it interesting in terms of the complexities of executive compensation and how to divide that. And then in terms of custody, I understood what the reasons were that people fight over custody. And I also understood that a lawyer needs to be extremely responsive. And the reason I understood that is my attorney was not always as responsive as I would have preferred. And so I have to say that that's really what drove me to do it, and really caused me to build my practice. And one of the things that we pride ourselves on is responsiveness and also being prepared, because I think most of it is being prepared. When I went through my case, my attorney was not always prepared. Often they were fumbling through their papers, trying to figure out what does this mean or what is this, and that feeling of chaos, frankly, when you're supposed to feel, that you're secure with your attorney, that feeling that your attorney is not prepared was very important. And so we are super prepared. And we really pride ourselves on when we walk into that courtroom or when we get to the settlement negotiation table that we understand the facts about the case and that we are prepared.
Definitely, yeah. But your personal experience had maybe some degree that influence because you had experienced not an advantageous, resourceful lawyer in your case, and it had such an impact on you that you decided to make it part of your career.
It did, actually. I remember actually sitting at the trial table, and I will tell you, it was like a mess. It was all the exhibits were everywhere. The attorney couldn't find the exhibits, couldn't, and I had an expert, and the expert was trying to help the attorney. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, how could this be happening after years of litigation? And where is the organization in this system? And part of it, I'm going to say, is that it was a very small firm, and it didn't have the structure that, frankly, my firm has, which is that we are, there's enough attorneys, and there's enough attorneys at different levels and paralegal staff that actually can pull a case together, that can answer a motion when it needs to be answered, that actually isn't, doing everything at the last second. And that's so important.
Totally. In my personal scenario, the divorce that went through, I don't know, you always kind of, you seek out a lawyer and you hope they can help you, but what they respond to you is they're going to try to help you. But in the end, you don't know the outcome if it's going to be in your favor or not.
No, you don't. And look, there is no crystal ball. I always say that if I had a crystal ball, I would have 4 times the amount of my practice, right? But there is no crystal ball. The only thing we can do is the best that we can. And people need to also be realistic in their expectations, right? And so if people are unrealistic in their expectations, then that doesn't actually work for them either. So we try from the very first consultation with our clients to be, right? We try to be realistic, and we try to give them practical solutions. And we also try to resolve certain things that can be resolved, but not everything can be resolved. And that's sometimes why you need a judge.
Yes, so true. What do you see most people come to you with?
So I would say they come to us with custody matters, and they come to us with financial matters. And I see certainly a lot of custody cases. We tend to have a lot of contested custody cases where, and very often there are addiction issues associated with custody. Maybe there's somebody is drinking too much in terms of alcohol, or there's substance abuse, or there's issues where there's a special needs child, and perhaps someone is in denial about the special needs child. There may be maybe there is one neurotypical child, and then there's one child that is not neurotypical. And so all of these types of issues come to us. There's also the issue in terms of finances of perhaps tracing separate property. And separate property is very important in terms of tracing, because it is the ability for you to pull back your premarital property or inheritances, etc. And so that's also important. And I think that these are important issues that people have, perhaps child support, alimony issues. We run the gamut.
Totally. Yeah. What kind of advice can you share with single parents?
So I think in terms of single parents, I think that there is, a other parent, right, who is often wants to be part of your child's life. Essentially, I think that it's very important for single parents also, because they're not necessarily single parents, right? They may be the primary parent, but not necessarily the single parent. They need to be able to foster a relationship with the other parent. And that's very important because, a child usually, not always, has two parents who want to be involved. And it's important for a child to have those two parents involved if there is no safety concern. So I say this, right, because there might be domestic violence. There could be issues of alcoholism or substance abuse. And then perhaps that other parent is not safe to be caring for the child. And so if there are safety concerns, then you need to bring that to the attention of the attorney that you're working with. Make sure the attorney knows if there are domestic violence issues. Sometimes people are ashamed or embarrassed or in denial about some of those domestic violence issues. Make sure that you bring them to the attention of your attorney.
Yeah, thank you. Those are valuable advice. Divorces can be costly. So what can you say to people who are contemplating divorce or going through it? How can they control the cost of divorce?
It is so difficult, right? Because you're correct. Divorces can be costly and they usually are costly. And unless you and your spouse or the other parent can come to a resolution in terms that you would find acceptable and that the other parent finds acceptable and the other party finds acceptable. Perhaps there's not even parents, maybe there's no children, maybe it's all financial. But unless you can do that, it is likely to be expensive. And divorce in New York is expensive. And if you want, I would say this, if you are trying to do this inexpensively, you will sacrifice all of the things that, frankly, you may want, which is somebody who's going to go into court who's prepared, somebody who's going to go into court and know the facts of your case, somebody who's going to advocate strongly for you, because it does cost money. You are paying for someone to understand your case, prepare for your case, be able to argue your case. And a lot of these issues are very fact intensive. If you're dealing with finances, you may need to have experts. You may need to have valuations. You are going to perhaps have a forensic accountant. It's not an inexpensive process. And I can't actually make it an inexpensive process for someone when it actually calls for the work to be done. Trust me, we are very busy at our firm. And so we are not trying to do, this make work. Okay. We bill fairly. We bill what it should be. But on the other hand, it is an expensive process, and particularly if you're litigating the issues. If you can reach a settlement, that is great, and you will save yourself a fortune. But don't do it at the sacrifice of reaching the right settlement. That's what I would say to you.
Thank you. Yeah. To people who don't know, what is the distinction between legal custody and a physical custody?
So such a great question. So legal custody is about who makes the major decisions for the child. So that would include things like educational issues. Where is your child going to go to school? What type of school is it going to be? Medical issues, therapeutic issues. Is your child a child who needs medication, perhaps for ADHD, or needs some other source of therapy? Who's going to choose the therapist? Who's going to decide if the medication is given, or there's other ways, holistic ways that can be dealt with? You're talking about other issues in terms of religion. Do you both actually practice the same faith? What is the policy in your household, or what has been the policy in your household about practicing in terms of a faith? How has your child or children been raised? The other issue is extracurricular activities. That comes up a lot. Extracurricular activities. One parent thinks the children may be overscheduled. One parent thinks that the children need activities, right? How many activities? Which activities? These are all questions that actually have to be decisions made for your child. And the question is, can you co-parent? Is there a level of trust between the two of you where you can make these decisions seamlessly and together? And if not, then maybe one of you needs to have final decision making in these areas. Maybe one of you should have sole legal custody. And so the question is, how does it really work? Is one parent willing to follow what the providers say while one parent is unwilling to follow what the providers say? That's an important question. So that's legal custody in a nutshell. Physical custody is, where is the child spending their time? What is the access schedule? What is the access schedule during the week, during the weekends, during the holidays, during the vacation schedule? What is going to be this access schedule for the child? Who's going to be with the child and when? How is pickup and drop off organized? All of those kinds of issues are under physical custody.
Thank you. That's very thorough description, and yeah, you make a very good point. I think the best is to agree with the other parent and to kind of minimize any points of friction and to arrive at a solution that's beneficial for both parents and the child as the beneficiary of this particular circumstance. So totally love that. What is the general divorce process?
Well, it depends on the divorce. So sometimes, as I said, people can resolve things, and they do. Sometimes people mediate, but I would say that mediation is great if the issues are not complex and if you can actually feel that you are an equal in the room. So if, for example, your spouse is a financial person and you're not, or if your spouse is an attorney and you're not, or there's domestic violence, or one of you is in a superior position in terms of control of the assets, then perhaps mediation isn't really the best way to do this, okay? And then you need to find a good attorney who you really believe has your back and is knowledgeable both in the law and practical, and can actually put together and craft a strategic plan for you and your family. That's what I would say is the first thing. So you're going to have a consultation. You may have a consultation with various attorneys, and then you're going to make a decision which attorney is in the best position to do that for you. Once that is done, then you may do what is called starting your divorce action, which may mean filing a summons. Now, that does not mean that you're going to be in court. It means that you have started your divorce action. It's a document that has to be filed anyway at the end of your divorce, but it is something that you'll start so that your commencement date begins. And that is almost like stopping the clock on the finances, except not always. So there's some nuances there. But I will say that is your commencement date of your divorce. And then you're going to likely exchange net worth statements, which are going to be financial statements that show what your expenses are, assets, your liabilities, and you're going to have that exchanged. And then there's going to be discovery, which is showing all the backup for all of these different accounts, businesses, all of those kinds of things, real estate properties, appraisals. You're going to go through all of that process so that you come up with essentially what is to be divided. What are the items that are going to be divided, and what is the maintenance, spousal support, and child support? Maybe nothing, it may be something, right? So that's going to be the question. And then for how long are those items going to be actually paid? That's another issue. And then you may go through the next process, which could be depositions, where certain questions are asked under oath and there are answers given under oath, and there could be some more documents requested so that you have the proper backup. And then hopefully you will be in a position that you can reach a settlement, okay? And maybe you could do this at the beginning, okay? But you need to make sure, if you're doing this at the beginning, that you actually have all of the information that provides you with the ability to do this. So it's not it should not be a guessing game, and it should not be a dartboard where you're literally throwing a dart. It should be for real. What are the assets? What are the liabilities? This is what I've intended to do. And then you come up with your settlement proposal. Hopefully that works. If it does not work, then you're in the next stage of litigation.
Oh, yeah. What would you say? How to pick a good attorney for yourself?
I think you can ask your friends. You could look online. You can ask if you have a therapist. Your therapist may know of other people who have gone through divorces in their practice. You can ask your therapist, ask your accountant, ask family, friends. There are various ways to find attorneys. And there's no lack of attorneys. There's a lack of good matrimonial attorneys, but there's no lack of attorneys. So the trick is to get all these recommendations and then decide who best fits what you need. So it may be that you pick somebody who's the exact opposite of you. You may be very easy to get along with, and yet you need somebody who's going to really advocate, right? You may be not your best quality to advocate for yourself. Or you may be married to somebody who is more narcissistic. And so you need to make sure that you have somebody who can deal with that and get past a lot of that so-called charm, which isn't so charming sometimes. But essentially, you want to pick somebody that you feel comfortable working with. And you want to pick somebody who has the breadth and the scope of a firm, I believe, that can actually work with you and your matter.
Totally. Thank you. What is the best advice you ever received about divorce process?
Best that I've ever received or that I've ever given?
You received.
That I've received, I would say be prepared. That's, I would say, the best. Be prepared. And here's the thing about it, okay? Plan for the worst, okay, and hope for the best, right? That's my advice, okay? That's the advice that I've received, and that's the advice that I give, okay? You always want to plan for the worst because you never know what's going to happen in a divorce. It's like a chess game. You move one piece, somebody else is moving another piece. And don't underestimate, the lights went on with that. So you never know, okay, what your spouse is going to do, because keep in mind, your spouse is now not acting just by themselves. They have a team of people likely, right, who are advising them. And so don't underestimate what your spouse is going to do. And remember, it's that game of chess, and you make one move and there's going to be another move. You put in one motion, there's going to be another motion. You go to court and ask for one thing, they're going to ask for another thing. You need to understand that you can't anticipate everything, but you should try to plan as best as you can.
It's like strategy. It's not what you see is what you get. It's kind of thinking ahead and planning your next move. And at once, let's say, I called you all together and you thought you knew the person, and then you see a totally different side of that person. And now they're not in the best interest of you anymore. It's about fighting. It's about getting what everyone wants. And
it doesn't have to be about fighting and getting everything that everyone wants, right? But sometimes it is, okay? But sometimes it is about what is right, too. What is right and what is in the best interest of your children. And so sometimes you may think that it's about fighting, but it's not necessarily about fighting. It is what somebody really truly believes is in the best interest of the children.
Yes, totally. What would you say is your superpower?
So what is my superpower? I would say that my other associates and my other partners in my firm are my superpower, because I would say that they are what actually helps me be as prepared as I need to be. And even my paralegal staff, I would include my paralegal staff in my superpower, because without all of these people, without the team that we have, we would not be able to do the work that we do.
Very well said. Awesome. What kind of advice would you give to your younger self?
So my younger self. So I would have said, my younger self, I would have said I should have gone to college straight out, and I should have developed a career straight out. However, it worked out for me. I was in the fashion business before, and a lot of what I learned in the fashion business, believe it or not, has helped me at the negotiating table in matrimonial law. And so I take a lot of the negotiations experience that I had giving markdown money or negotiating markdown money, or trying to not take back those returns or whatever it was, right, were things that I learned. So I think that I was always a very dedicated. I was a hard worker. And so I don't know that I would really change the advice that I had given myself back then, which is to work hard and to be focused and to remember that your truth is very important, to be honest, because being honest really counts.
Yeah, totally. Totally. What do you think is what is the smallest thing you've done that had the biggest in your life?
The
Biggest
smallest thing I've done that has had the biggest part of my life. That is so interesting. So the smallest thing that I have done, probably would say, I don't do a lot of small things. I'm thinking, what do I do that's small?
Maybe in the
Well,
moment it was small, but then you saw something bigger as a result.
I have to say, maybe it's the idea that you can't do everything yourself, and maybe getting people to do things and delegate. I don't know that that's a small thing, but I think it's a very important thing. Learning delegation is very important, and I have learned delegation. And maybe it started off being small, which it did. And then I learned that you really need to delegate some of the smaller things in order to be able to focus on the bigger things.
Totally. And sometimes maybe focusing on your strengths and delegating weaknesses or things you're not great at to somebody who is great at that.
100%, 100%.
Yeah. What do you think is the most important trait to instill in a child?
So I would say honesty. I think that that's absolutely the most important trait to instill in a child. I think that children sometimes lie, and they try to get away with it. And I think it's extremely important that you teach them that their word is very important, and that they need to be honest, and they need to be honest about their feelings. They need to express their feelings, and they need to do it without fear. And that their word is essentially the most important thing, because if they can't be trusted to tell the truth, then they won't be trusted out in the world. It's something that I really think is really the most important thing of all. As lawyers, we only have our words, right? Whether they be spoken or they be written. And so honesty is really the most important thing to teach your child.
True, very right. I do agree with that. Any fun projects you're working on that you like to share?
So fun projects, yes. I am the board chair of a non-for-profit organization called Savvy Ladies. It is one of my very fun projects, actually. And Savvy Ladies is a non-for-profit that is dedicated to women's financial literacy. And we are really making unbelievable headway throughout the country now. We are supported by a lot of the large financial institutions as well as large retailers. And our secret sauce is a helpline that serves over 3,000 women a year, which is a place that women can come and be paired with financial professionals to answer their financial questions. NASDAQ actually helped us build our application in order to do that. And we are so proud. We're getting ready for our 2024 gala, which will be on October 28th. And it'll be at the NASDAQ headquarters. And that is certainly a fun project. I am also on the board for Family Legal Care, and that is an awesome non-for-profit that is dedicated to helping the unrepresented in family court, and to help them get child support, to help them get orders of protection, custody. And although they are not substituting in as lawyers, they actually teach people to advocate for themselves in family court. And so that is a phenomenal project that I am working on. And then I am also president of what is called the Justice Brandeis Law Society. And our mission there is to fight against hate of any kind. And that includes anti-Semitism, anti-everything. And so we are working with a junior board there, and that is a very fun project for me there.
Wow, exciting. How do you have the time to do all that and run a practice at the same time?
You have to stretch that day. You just have to stretch that day. And my husband often reminds me that there is no such thing as a Schmonday. So that there are only those 7 days in a week and no Schmondays. But I'm not a believer. I think you could always find the time during that day.
Totally. Yeah, we are all given 24 hours. It's how we decide to allocate the time to different areas.
Yes, he also reminds me sleep has to be one of them. So yes.
So how do you support yourself? What is your self-care routine to be able to be, energetic to run everything and do all that you do?
So I would say to you that my support really comes from my husband. He is an incredible support system for both my business and my personal life. And just spending time with him is what gives me my energy level and my support. And we are married over 26 years now, and he is the love of my life. And so it's all good.
Oh, that's incredible. Was there any book that you read in your journey, in your life, that kind of inspired you?
One book that I loved, and I think it is called Who Moved the Cheese? I can't remember the author, but it is a fabulous book. It is a very good read, and it really talks about being able to adjust when things change in your life. And I believe that's the name of it. Do you know the book?
Yes, yeah. I don't remember the author either, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It's a great book. It's a fabulous book, actually. And I would say that is truly inspirational because, I, like everybody else, love certain things that go on, on a routine basis in my life. And we repeat a lot of our experiences that we enjoy. But at some point, things change. Look, the pandemic came. Who would have thought, right, that we would be literally stopped in time in some ways and have to adjust. I remember going to my doctor's office right before the pandemic, and she's saying to me, I'm going to close my practice because there's a pandemic coming. And I'm going to close my practice and I'm going to write a book and I'm going to take off time. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And I was just in absolute shock. And sure enough, just weeks later, right, the city starts to close down. And we're in the city and we go out to dinner, right? Because it's like a Sunday night right before that Wednesday when everything is closing down on that Wednesday. And we go off to go to one of our favorite places for dinner and it's closed. And then we go to another place and it's closed. And it was truly like, who moved the cheese? Okay. And we're down now to pizza. Okay. We're having pizza and we're searching for restaurants to figure out what could happen because we were in such disbelief that the entire city was going to be shutting down. And then we went to all of our meetings and did all of our stuff. And, I think I did my last trial right before the day that the courts closed the pandemic, right? And things were starting to shut down. And it truly was who moved my cheese. But I will say what ended up happening, and it's such a good example of who moved my cheese, we had the best years of our life during that pandemic. My husband and I got to spend so much time together on a daily basis. We learned how to do things virtually. You and I are now Zooming together. We might not have done that in the old days, but now it's a natural. I do Zooms every single day for consultations and meetings with clients and court appearances. And while many are in person in terms of court appearances, I would say there's so many things that can be done virtually now that we're not. And so we took Who Moved My Cheese and we did move the cheese, but we moved it in a really positive way. And I think that really those kinds of changes make a very big difference in life.
Totally. And yeah, there were some great things that came out of the pandemic. We learned more about ourselves. You got to spend time with your spouse and you kind of new things came about. So it wasn't all bad. There was also good parts that we have learned.
Correct. And then look, we can't dismiss the fact that there were so many people who were spending time with their spouses and they learned that they wanted a divorce, right? Or they knew they wanted a divorce, but they just couldn't take it one more minute. So either people really loved that time as we did, okay? And we learned, we were literally in our home. I don't think we walked out of our home at all for maybe months. We were ordering in the food to come, by truck to the house. We were washing off the boxes. I mean, we were super, super careful about it, but we really enjoyed the time. Now, there were a lot of people who were calling for consultations during that time, mostly from their cars, okay, because they couldn't get away from their spouses. And those people learned that they wanted a divorce. And so it was one or the other, right? And I don't think there was so much middle ground at that point.
Yeah. What have you seen? Do you see a rise in divorce cases? Like, do you see kind of, let's say, if we look back maybe 5 years ago, how it was then versus now?
So I see a rise in divorce cases. I don't know that divorce in itself has risen, but I see a rise in divorce cases, certainly in our practice. Our practice has grown steadily throughout the years. And certainly during the pandemic, I mean, the consultations were pouring in, literally. And, people didn't necessarily start at that moment, but they started many months after. And people who had come years before, maybe for their first consultation ever, and then put it on hold, they actually came back during the pandemic. And I think some of that, frankly, was that people no longer had the distraction of work outside the home or business meetings or business trips or being able to be with friends or, frankly, and I hate to say it, even having affairs. Okay. They couldn't do any of these things that actually were able to distract them from the realities of their marriage. And so we saw an uptick, a huge uptick, and I think it has continued.
Yeah, so true. Because now you get to spend time, because usually we spend 90%, we have kind of work spouses or work people who you work with, you spend more time than people who you marry, your family. And here we saw this reversal when now it's the opposite.
Exactly.
And sometimes people have grown apart because they had that outside role. And now once, like you said, everything has been disconnected, they gotta
Exactly right.
either fall in love again or find out that this is not what you were seeking and you needed to find a new way out.
That's right. And of course, there was domestic violence during that time. People just, they basically could not take it. And so there were a lot of anger issues that came out. It was a very difficult time for a lot of people. I mean, look, I say this, obviously, for us, it was a great time because we got something that would not have normally gotten, which was time together. I work crazy hours. My husband is very active in terms of his businesses. And so it is we're constantly working. It's kind of like, what do you do for fun? We work. Okay. But, and that's really the truth. That is what we do for fun. We work. But the fact is that I think for a lot of people, it was, medically, obviously, a lot of people lost their lives. It was a terrible time for them. And people got very ill and some of them didn't recover. And then some of them actually realized that their marriage needed to be over for various reasons. And they felt very trapped and limited in that time period and helpless. And it was a very difficult time for a lot of people.
Yeah. How do you deal with emotions? Like when people come and they're very charged up about the whole situation, do you have people helping you with that area as well?
So we definitely recommend that people see therapists if they are charged up, as you say. If they need help with therapy, we absolutely recommend that. We recommend people work with therapists to learn how to have co-parenting skills. But that is part of therapy, frankly. It's not really a separation because I think that people have to understand that, through therapy, you're going to learn things about yourself and you're going to be able to work on certain skills for yourself. And so we definitely recommend that people see therapists during this time period. It's a difficult time for people.
Yeah. And we are not taught how to deal with that stuff when we
Exactly.
are. It's like a new territory.
Yes, for sure.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Is there anything I haven't asked that you would like to share?
No, I highly recommend that people use the Savvy Ladies hotline. That much I will say to you. The savvyladies.org. It is a huge help for many, many women who have financial questions or feel that they don't have control of their finances. They should go online to savvyladies.org and they will be matched with financial professionals. It is nationwide and it's a great resource.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We will include everything in episode notes. If people would like to connect with you, learn more about you, where would they go?
So they can go to my blog, lisazeiderman.com. And they can actually, there's a place to actually write to me and to connect with me. They could also read about me and my podcasts go on there. And so they can understand what my views are and some of my tips on how to deal with some of these situations. Many of my articles are there as well. They could connect with me through my LinkedIn site as well under my name, Lisa Zeiderman. They can call my office, which is 914-455-1000, or they could write or email to me at lz@mzw-law.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to have you, my first attorney on the podcast. Oh, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was a very fun episode.